Welcome, any and all, to the Movie Club Collective, the podcast where we announce a new movie every week. We give you a week to watch it so that we can spoil it or whatever.
Yes.
And we have a nice in-depth discussion about it. This week's movie is No Country for Old Men, written for the screen and directed by Joel and Ethan Coen.
The brothers.
The Coen Brothers.
That makes so much
Notorious.
sense now.
Based on the novel by Cormac McCarthy, same name. 2 hours, 2 minutes. It got nominated for 8 Oscars, won 4. Beloved in some certain circles, I would say.
What were the 4 it won?
It won for directing, written adaptation,
Javier Bardem
Best
won.
Picture, and Javier Bardem.
Javier, okay, right. Okay.
Javier.
Deacons, once again, did not win.
No, Deacons
Yeah, it was up for cinematography, but it got beat by a movie that we all reviewed previously. No, There Will Be Blood. So before I get into it, let me introduce everybody joining us this week. My name is Jon Olson. I'm your host. Across from me here in the studio is Jose Venutolo.
Hello. We're back.
Joining us via Skype, we have returning guest Michael Smith. Thank you for joining us. And once again, sort of series regular, Nick Landa.
Hello.
Enthusiastic.
I love your intro.
He's
Always classy.
He's meant for radio.
So have you all seen this movie before? Have you seen it before?
I have seen this movie before. Only one time.
One time.
Yes.
Long time ago?
Yes. Probably when it came out.
It came out in what, 2008?
2000, a lot ago.
2007?
2007.
2007? I was 2008 Oscars.
I think
maybe.
I wasn't even here in America.
Yeah, 2007.
Yeah.
Um,
The beginning.
did you like it?
Back then?
Yeah.
No.
You didn't like it.
What? Oh, God.
Didn't like it.
This is gonna
didn't.
get
Any particular reasons?
I just I couldn't see it with the eyes that I can see it right now. Like it was just not as entertaining as I wanted it to be. It was like, I don't know, I didn't have the same perspective that I have. Yes, the
You
same
have the
eyes.
same eyes.
This was before
This is before filmmaking.
before you went into film.
Yeah, this is me just watching film.
Okay. What about you, Mike? Seen it before?
What about me?
Have you seen the movie before?
I saw it in the theater,
Nice.
and then I saw it a couple times afterwards when it came out on video.
Nice. Do you like this movie?
It's a complicated question.
Complicated question? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then Nick, what about you? Have you seen it
I've
before?
seen this movie like a lot, yeah. At least 10 times. I've seen it a bunch.
Seen it a bunch. You like it?
Yeah. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's also one of my favorites. I didn't see it in theater, unfortunately.
Yeah, I
We
missed
rented
it.
it back in the Blockbuster days.
The trailer was not good enough to make me want to see the trailer. Was when I saw Javier Bardem's haircut.
Yeah,
I was
the
like,
hair. No.
Lame.
no. Yeah.
What is that stupid bowl cut? It looks like a penis.
Dutch painter boy.
Guy was a
Yeah.
dick.
That's so weird.
So what are some of the what's the highlight of this movie? What's the best thing about this movie, Jose? What's the best aspect?
For a moment, I have two best aspects because I dwell between two of them.
Give me one.
One of them is Javier. I mean, because all the other characters you have probably seen in other movies, Javier was so original that it was pleasant to see it, and it was pleasant to hate him. The other thing is just the whole feeling that because of the age that I have right now, like I'm not saying that I'm old, but I see things in a different way, and the message from this movie resonated more for me. The whole narration by Tommy Lee Jones made more sense and had more meaning at this point in my life than it did before.
No, it's a good one. Javier Bardem's amazing.
Javier Bardem was like,
Yeah.
He's very menacing.
he should win an Oscar for this.
They should just give him another one.
He's just
Like a couple of years
like they
later.
did for Christoph Waltz with Inglourious
Yeah, there
Basterds.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Mike, what's sort of the best thing about this movie? What's the best quality in this movie?
I liked how so much of it was told through non-dialogue driven scenes. Like I love it was Hitchcockian in the way it was setting up details.
Yeah.
And the cat and mouse aspect, and you were just drawn in on certain sequences with just purely just watching these characters do what they're going to do and like how they were going to do it. It was very engaging. I liked that a lot. And it wasn't normal for the Coen brothers. Well, I don't think this was a normal Coen brothers by any means at all. So
yeah,
cool
when
to
I
see them
think of
doing that.
this movie, I like kind of don't think of it as a Coen Brothers movie. I think of it more as McCarthy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've read not this book, but a couple of his other books, and it's just like this movie watches like those books read.
I read
Like the
book.
shots are so focused. You read the book. Is it close?
It's like the best adaptation I could think of as far as a book. They obviously have to take some stuff out, but man, it's like they did not change.
Actually, you know what? I think I did read this book. I think I did, because I remember one of the differences at the end. Or no, I'm mixing it up with
the Hunger Games.
Sitting on the Plains or whatever.
You're thinking about the Hunger Games?
I was just thinking of a different book. But it's close.
It's super close. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say the only difference I could think of is the Llewellyn stage where he's going to the motel near the death scene. That stuff is slightly different, but other than that, it's pretty on point.
There you go.
Yeah, like and just the way that it's shot, like all the shots are very functional. One of the reasons I picked this movie was because I wanted to use a scene from it in one of my classes. I teach a sound class, and there's no score in this movie, which just makes it such a phenomenal example of like how diegetic sound, like sound from the environment, can like really sell the story home, and like build the tension. So like I picked the scene where he drives up to the motel and he's got the beeper, and it's just like it's such a nice, like the beeping is so loud, and if you pay attention to the timing of it, like you can hear where it is right along with him. And then like Josh Brolin's shots are all like very focused. They're all just like hangers, poles, screws. Everything is very like
Methodical.
Yeah, it's methodical and it's based on point of view. It like really accentuates the point of view. Like I felt like on this watch of the movie, I kind of felt like I could read their minds, because you just always see where their attention is. So like when he's tracking and then it comes across the blood, I feel like you're just tracking right along with him. Like it's really nice if you watch it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, their goals are very specific too. It's not like there's a lot of ambiguity here of what characters are doing.
Yeah.
It's very much like Tom and Jerry, essentially, like I'm going to get you, and he's trying to get away. It's very clear cut.
It's true. Yeah, it's a good analogy.
And so they're able to tell the story without much dialogue, and like with just really focused visual storytelling. I like it a lot for those qualities. What about you, Nick? What was your favorite?
Man, there's a bunch of things, but cinematography's great. Lack of music was awesome. Javier Bardem was awesome. One thing, I think Javier Bardem's character Chigger was probably the best, but I do think Llewellyn was also kind of unique, because as a protagonist, I hadn't really seen too many protagonists like that. It's hard to think of one, like, because he's very, he's not fighting for any common good. Like, he's literally just finds money, goes on his own. He's not super...
He's trying to keep it
sympathetic, I mean, he's kind of, you kind of sympathize with him, but, and then, also he dies at like a very crucial, odd moment in the film. So I thought that was really interesting protagonist.
And almost anticlimactically.
It's very...
He dies in an anticlimactic way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I thought that was very unique for a character.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Because, the whole time you're thinking he's going to, at least if he does die, he's going to die at the end. And it's like, no, it's not really, it's near the end, but it's not the end.
And you just find him dead.
They don't even show you his face.
You go like, oh, he's dead.
They just tell you.
They treat him as a secondary character in that moment.
Yeah.
And then that's what.
Then
throws
it's
you
like
off.
fully Tommy Lee Jones' story
Yes.
by that point.
Then it goes back to Tommy. Do you know? I mean, I have to make a side note here about when he gets to Mexico and then he has the mariachis waking him up. I mean, that is not even trying to be hidden. Like what these guys are singing is literally like you thought you could get away, you thought you could go to heaven, and now you're stuck in this hell. So like they're literally singing what this guy like. There's no even an attempt except for the language barrier to hide what was
That's
happening.
classic,
It's incredibly, yeah. It's like I'm watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm watching it and going like this is so literal, like so fucking literal. I loved it.
Nice. Any issues with the film? You want to hit issues? You have problems? Did you have anything, Mike?
Almost perfect.
What's
It's really hard to think of.
what's something?
It's almost perfect. No, honestly, it's harder for me to think of. I'd have to think for an issue for a bit, but I can't think right now.
What about you, Mike? What do you got?
Okay, I have two ways of thinking of this movie. It's like
All right.
I can't really have one way of thinking about it. I either have my days where I don't think of it as part of the Coen Brothers, and I think it's like an impeccable, perfect movie. And then there's some days where I wake up and I'm like, oh, No Country for Old Men. There's nothing Fargo didn't do with less budget and a smaller running time with just as much power. And it's not their fault. This is an adaptation, but it's very, very similar to Fargo's
Yeah, absolutely.
storyline and themes. It's
Like
even
it
got
strikes
people
really well with their
solving the crime.
sensibilities.
So there's days where I have trouble with the Coen Brothers. I think anyone would. They're so scattershot, and they make
Yeah.
so many movies that are hit or miss, and some are they're just wildly different. But I've always thought of them as very personal filmmakers, and this does not feel like a personal movie at all for them. It feels like a very dogged, as we said, it's a perfect adaptation. With a bigger budget, and a longer running time to me. And it's a great movie. I don't really have a lot to specifically pick apart of the movie itself, but as a part of a larger body of work, this movie leaves me kind of feeling kind of cold.
But I think it's a nice alternative to Fargo.
Sure.
And they do a few things. They have they try new things in the movie. And I think it's a much prettier movie than Fargo also.
I don't know about that, but it's a filmmaker's movie. It's all those things that are interesting, like that are very technical stuff that people like you and I pay attention to, not normally an audience. And I think, but it's part of me where every time I sit down to watch Fargo, I think it's a much more sweep, especially watching it with other people. This is another one of those movies like There Will Be Blood. It's a bad girlfriend movie. It's one of those movies that guys love, and they love to, but if you sit down with like a girl and they're like, it's violent and it's boring. But Fargo's funny, and it's got beautiful music. I think it's very pretty, but it's bleak. It's white. There's a lot of great cinematography. But I can't separate the two movies very easily. And No Country for Old Men tilts towards more of like an indulgent kind of like people love this movie. The crazy amount of praise heaped on this movie is not something I can share. I don't think it's a bad movie at all, but I don't know. I find myself kind of going, Tommy Lee Jones can do that role in his sleep.
That's true.
Oh yeah, I mean that's him.
I think
That's
Josh
him.
Brolin does
Josh
a really good
Brolin,
job
I
in
guess.
this movie, though. Like, we were talking a little bit before the show. If you compare this performance to something like in Sicario,
Or the Goonies.
or the Goonies, or like these are characters that in some ways seem very similar, but like strikingly different performances.
Yeah.
And I really like how he plays this character. Like you do kind of empathize with him. And I think I don't know. I mean, Frances McDormand was a great, compelling protagonist in Fargo, but she comes in like halfway into the movie. And I don't think the villains are as menacing. They're more comical almost.
They are kind of comical. Yeah.
They are scary to an extent, because of what they're doing is like awful. But yeah, there's like almost this sort of comedic element to this, and they just like strip that away with Javier Bardem's character.
Right, it's a very heavy-handed movie.
Yeah. They're just like, he's outside evil. You know, he's the devil, essentially.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing he's not willing to do. Like, he doesn't give a shit about human life.
It definitely has less of the Coen Brothers signature on it. Like, quirkiness is a huge element, I feel like, no matter what film they do. And this one, because it's a strict adaptation.
You get it in, like, the really side characters, like the store clerk.
I can see
Small technical difficulty.
Yeah.
Skype.
Joe.
Dropped our video.
I do think, though, like, I definitely think the Coen Brothers have been fans of the author for a long time. Because when I look at previous films of theirs, I always, like, one I was thinking of was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? The antagonist in that movie is very McCarthy. You know, it's kind of like the judge in another book that he'd written. Very, like, devil, you know, like, omnipotent kind of character. When I saw this movie, I was like, oh, these guys have been fans of this dude for a while. And I think it was just a matter of time where they're like, we need to adapt something from this guy. And they did it, like, strictly hardcore and took out a lot of the elements they would have put in their own original scripts.
Yeah, you get a sense of them being very respectful of somebody else's material.
Totally.
Yeah. Time in.
Back in.
So, I do think, like, in No Country, there are the occasional side characters that kind of have the quirkiness. Like the guy, the bald guy in the convenience store who's like...
Anybody who's like a clerk or behind a desk.
No, sir, that's unusual.
Exactly.
You know? Like, even the like, border patrol guy, the barking sergeant guy is, like, ridiculous. So I do think, like, they managed to kind of, like, put their weirdness of character into this movie. I don't know. I don't want to, like, drag out comparing it to Fargo, but I don't know. To me, it's different enough that I feel like it stands on its own legs and, like, deserves to have been made.
I think it stands on its own too, very much.
You know.
But it's just such a different movie for them. It felt like I wasn't watching a Coen Brothers movie the first time I saw it, and it always feels that way a little bit to me.
That's one of the things I like about them, though, is they have these, like, weird movies that you wouldn't expect. Like Hudsucker Proxy is kind of on the outside even.
I love that movie.
But a great movie, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I like this better than a lot of their other movies, to be quite honest. Like Burn After Reading is kind of, like they say it in the movie, like, what did we learn from this? I have no idea. Like, that's how I felt about that movie.
This
like,
one's in their top for me. This one's tied with, like, Big Lebowski for me.
Really, yeah.
Big
Big
Those are my
Lebowski,
two
Fargo.
favorite movies.
I haven't seen them all, though. I haven't seen a number of them.
My new experience
Barton
with
Fink
this
is my
movie.
favorite.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Fargo? What?
Barton
John
Fink,
Turturro, right?
Oh, Barton Fink?
by
I
far.
haven't seen that one in years. I gotta watch that
It's
one.
still on Netflix, right?
So long. Yeah, it is.
I think I
Or it was.
seen
I
it.
don't know. So,
It's not going to be our movie next week, I don't think,
No.
but you should watch it. Cinematography. One of Deacon's better works, I think. He did get nominated for this. Of course, he didn't win because they don't let him win.
Good.
He's too good.
This
I
Scorsese's
like this
cinematography.
personally better than There Will Be Blood, which we did with the same panel. So like I kind of want to. I'm curious about your opinions because these movies like shot almost on the same location, like to the point where No Country had to like shut down for a day because all the smoke from There Will Be Blood was getting in the back of their shots.
Really?
So like yeah, these movies shot concurrently. They were like up against each other on all the Oscars. And they have similar vibes just because like, you know, they're both in the desert and they both are like about evil. So I'm curious, like, how does this one compare to that for you guys?
they're so
There's
neck
more-
neck. Again, it's hard. Yeah.
There's more cinematography pyrotechnics going on with this movie. There's a lot more chances to play. There Will Be Blood is very...
There's quite a few pyrotechnics in that movie.
Well, no, that's literal. But I
Yes,
mean, like,
yes, I
fun
know.
stuff that you get to do that's fun. Like, you know, like, let's have a dog chase him through water. And, like, we're just going to push. Like, there's a lot more to do. Like, it's a much more action-y action-oriented film than There Will Be Blood. Like, there's specific set pieces in There Will Be Blood, but for the most part, that's a very laid-back film. You know, there's not a lot of camera tricks going on in it. This one is crazy. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
It's true.
They both use light very similar. Like, what I mean, it's hard for me to judge because I love using like lack of light and using, you know, like practicals and like on set sources, and both movies did that a lot. Like, there's so many really dark scenes in There Will Be Blood where there's just a lot of controlling of light. And then also in, you know, No Country for Old Men, you know, in the motel scene or this, that, you could tell a lamp next to him is the lamp that's lighting him. Like, they don't have all these setups or whatever. So both of them did that thing that always wins me over where, like, they're not too bright. I hate when I see movies that are too bright, and, like, they both feel like they set up a camera and shot it. Like, they just feel very authentic, both of them. And composition, both of them.
There are a couple night shots near the like truck shootout area where like it kind of does that Spielbergian glow from behind the mountain. There are a few kind of those that are very stylized, whereas like something more recent like Sicario had like some of the most incredible night shots ever, even compared to this movie.
Well, yeah, they just straight up went night vision.
Yeah, they're just like but like they don't rely on like additional lights, because you can tell there's like some really powerful lights behind there, like blasting.
Yeah, for sure. Especially during the chasing the sunrise bit. I know they had some crazy setups.
I mean, that's got to be really hard when you think about to compensate for having it take place right at dawn.
Yeah.
Like, there are showy things. Yeah, you made a good point. There are very sort of flashy things. Some of that scene actually is like very reminiscent of something like Children of Men also. Just in kind of like that quiet but intense chase. It's another scene where I think the lack of score like really helps. I really love just that they were bold enough to rely on the sound design with this movie, and that it really complements sort of the stark tone.
It does.
Yeah. What do you got?
There's definitely more bells and whistles. Like, I guess if I had to choose, I might give it to No Country. Because There Will Be Blood is definitely very simple. P.T. Anderson just likes getting performances a lot of time. I don't think he's very insert heavy. And this movie definitely does a lot of really cool creative insert stuff. You know, the shot on the TV where you see the reflection of them sitting, and like what you were saying, the whole bit of like the steps, the methodical steps of like doing this. I guess the camera was used maybe a bit more to tell the story in No Country versus There Will Be Blood.
That's one of the reasons I like it, is that it is visual storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to like, There Will Be Blood is more character study.
Yeah, P.T. Anderson just likes staying as wide as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, and get like just a lot of intensity on camera. But there is good performance in this movie too, that I think is as good as anything that's in.
Oh, absolutely.
There Will Be Blood, which is really saying something. The fact that they can kind of like that's what I love about the Coen Brothers, is like they really try to do it all. Like, let's have beautiful cinematography, shots that like tell us the story visually. Like, we'll have amazing performances and like perfect sound design. Like, it's really kind of incredible, and like something you don't see that often coming out of Hollywood. And like, you know, I don't know, there's just so much that is sort of standard in Hollywood movies that we see, and they really kind of buck that trend.
Yeah, I mean, the stripping of soundtrack is probably the biggest thing. And like, I am all about soundtracks in movies, and that's why I'm so surprised that I think the movie, in my opinion, I like it so much, is because, you know, in so many movies, the soundtrack is a huge factor if I really enjoyed it or not. And this one doesn't even have one, and I still, you know.
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the points. You know, it's just like it's saying, you know, like if the presence of music means something and you're used to it, the lack of it will also mean something.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
In terms of the story, was there anything that like didn't make sense to you guys?
The ending.
The ending. How so specifically, though?
Makes sense to me, kind of, but that's like a bit. That's, you know.
How so specifically?
Yeah, what
How do you mean?
what doesn't make sense for you in the end?
I mean, it did make. I mean, the first time I saw it, I was like, "Why are we just talking about his dream or whatever?" But after reading the book and reading a lot of that guy's stuff, I get it's just like a take on on death and afterlife and kind of the passing of the torch. The guy likes to always do things that in dreams show primitive and prehistoric kind of natures, like carrying a torch and going to a campfire and kind of like archetypal images. So I get it to a certain extent, but it's obviously very, not loose, but
it's a bit
kind of
nebulous.
vague, which is that author's
Might
thing.
I interject?
Yes. Yeah, go for it.
That has something to do with my feelings about this movie too, on the lukewarm levels, because I never read the book, and I've never read Cormac McCarthy either, and so this was definitely my first introduction to anything reminiscent of his style or what kind of stuff he was doing. But when this movie came out, there were so many analyses and people giving it some heavy-duty talk about themes and motifs and archetypal images, and like none of that hit for me. Like I always thought this was a movie where it was the first time I'd seen a modern movie where it really felt like that was overreaching for me. Like I was constantly reading that like Javier, like Shigur is like death walking the land, and I'm like, okay, I get that, but it's not. I don't think it's strong enough to drive the narrative forward on like a subtext level. I think it's to me like the surface story was it. There's not much going on to fulfill me on a subtext, and I guess I might have to read the book.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way as you, because when I saw it, I didn't know any about the author, and then after I saw it and I read a lot of stuff from the author, then stuff started to click. But yeah, I agree. I think as a film itself, a lot of that subtext stuff did come off a lot very loose. You're just kind of theorizing and stuff like that. So that is something I would say.
That with any narrative.
Yeah.
What's that?
And you could do that with any narrative. It's like, well, why this one? Like, nothing stands out about this narrative as like a metaphor for me very strongly. I felt were like, I let people have a ball, look into things as deeply as you want, but there was like, even if you go to the Wikipedia page, there's so much analysis, and it's just like, I don't know, why this one? Every movie has a lot of themes and motifs, but people saw a lot in this that I did not.
Because the damn author's so cryptic.
I have so many things to say
What do
about
you got?
about
Give me
this,
something.
this subject. It's just like I'm trying to make it as concise as I can. But from the beginning of the movie, the thing that impacted me this time that I saw it, and this is why the second time I feel it's a marvelous movie, is that the whole speech, the whole thing that Tommy Lee Jones is trying to figure out. Not he's just trying to answer for you. He's trying to figure it out for himself. He's talking about how things have changed through time, how his parents and grandparents did not live in these crazy times that they're living right now. And that's why I really appreciate when he goes visit that, I'm assuming it's like, is his dad, and goes like, I heard you're retiring, why are you doing that? And he basically tells that this job has become too much. This job is not like it used to be for you. And then he tells us like, you got it wrong. Like this, it's always been like that. It's never gonna be a country for all men. It's like the only difference, like everything that has happened that you think it's way more exponentially worse now has always been like that. Like the fucking medieval ages happened for us. Like we can't say that these days are more violent than days before because we come from violent days. The problem is that you have lived so long that you have had the chance to see it, and now it alters your perception of the world. You're just finding out that you're not cut for this, and it's okay with that. And the fact that Javier Bardem his character makes such a point about do not put that coin with all the coins, otherwise it will be just another coin. This coin had traveled 22 years to be now, and you don't know how important that is going to be in your life. And the guy probably doesn't even know at this point how important that coin was in his life. But Javier is the representation of life, knowing itself, knowing the evil, and not choosing to even see on the sides. He is like, this is it. Everything happens for a reason, and if this is what's happening to me, it was meant to be like that. That's why he never expresses pain, he never expresses anything. And that is why he gets his arm broken at the end. Because he gives her the choice. He goes like, I made a promise to your husband, now I'm here to kill you. And then she basically bargains for her life, and then he says, the only thing that I can give you is the choice of life. and all like this coin,
random, yeah.
this coin, and she refuses it. Then we see him. We don't see how that resolves. We see him coming out of the house. He cleans his boots,
yeah.
so we understand he killed her.
Yeah.
But to my perception, she never answered. So he had to broke his own code. He killed her when he had given her the chance, and then life instantaneously punishes him for that. Like he has life just happening to him with that car accident, and then he breaks his arm, and he just has to accept it because he broke his own code. She put him in a loop that he could not resist, so he took a choice, and he killed her. So he was not supposed to take choices, and that's why something bad.
See, what I took something different out of the car crash.
That's how I.
I took something really different out of the car crash.
I think Mike liked it.
I took from the car crash the idea that he is vulnerable.
Yeah,
because like he's not like Josh Brolin should win in their competition.
yeah.
Like that's the thing is like he's not as careful, he's not as thorough, he's not as skilled, he's not a good marksman, he can't fucking hit a bird from point blank range, and yet he wins anyway just out of a willingness to like not give a damn for human life. And they are similar in a lot of respects, but like I felt like, you know, there's this weird idea that he's like invincible, but then he gets wounded and like he can't get caught. He can't put his life in anyone's hands. Like Josh Brolin can go to the hospital. If Javier Bardem goes to the hospital, they'll arrest him in a second. You know what I mean? Like he is kind of vulnerable and like just random life can take him out.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a big thing. I mean, one thing I really think Jose hit on the head is like I definitely think one of the biggest themes. I think one thing you really hit on the head is like evolution is definitely, in my opinion, the biggest thing. You know, when he talks to his cousin or uncle or something, and he says you can't stop what's coming. And this author, what I like about this and what he does a lot is that the characters in his stories are usually the least powerful elements in the story. They do things that, through our perspective, are powerful, like Chigger, but at the end of the day, it's fate and change that trumps them always in all of his stories. And in this, I think it dealt with that as like, as powerful as Chigger seems, he can't stop what's coming. He can't see what's coming, and change is just a part of life. And I think one thing you said that was right on point is like, the older you get, the more you see of the change and the less you really can adapt with the new era, you know? I mean, yeah, things have always been bad. When he was a cop, just because they didn't have an automatic weapon, they still had bandits or whatever and coming and doing horrible things. It just was a different type of violence.
Exactly. I mean, that false perception that everything in the past was better.
It evolves, and you have to either keep up with
Exactly.
it or kind of fall
And
behind.
it's not that the past was better. It's that you have probably lived enough to see bad, and then now you start thinking that that's all. It's a matter of perception. Like Tommy Lee Jones was his character was upholding his life, in which you don't get old and eventually learn to be old. You're never 80 years old twice. You know, you like an 80-year-old man is experiencing 80 years old for the first time the moment he's 80 years old.
Yeah.
So, you know, you might settle into the idea that you might be old, but everybody is just having everything that they're living at that moment. Nobody has the experience. So he is seeing the old guys, the old timers, and he thinks that they have the answers, and they were as confused as you were.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he was realizing. That's what
Yeah,
he
for
was.
sure. And that end dream is kind of like his initiation
Yes.
into that. Because he sees his dad, and he describes him holding a horn of fire, which is like super primitive.
Yeah.
I mean, holding a horn full of fire, and it's like he's taking him into the ancient. It's like you're initiated, like you're part of.
Yeah, but then he
the
woke up.
ancients.
He's like cynical to the end. He's not a believer. He
Yeah.
doesn't believe in the
He's
afterlife.
starting to
Like
get it.
he-
It's like what Nick said. It's like, you know, he's just seeing it for the first time. He's starting to have the dreams, and then eventually those dreams will come and become wisdom.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing I got from the movie was it's not that does rise above the simple narrative of this cat and mouse and stuff. It's like it doesn't matter. Essentially, it's like all these characters have their specifics, but Tommy Lee Jones at the end of it all is afraid, and he's trying to put some sort of spin on it that the world's getting worse. All he is afraid of is dying.
Mm.
Yeah.
The inevitability of that is coming. Like Shigur is
Just how
coming,
far behind he
no
was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
matter what.
That's great. I haven't
Josh
got that.
Brolin's character just tried to live in his own, just in time, tried to grasp something, and boom, he's out of it. You know.
Yeah.
So you can either wait for it to come and get you, or you could directly get into it and jump off
And
a
I
cliff.
think that's why. I think that's why they didn't show him dying.
Yeah, I think it's more powerful that they did it that way.
All right, let's move on to final thoughts.
Yes.
What are your final thoughts? You want to give it a score or whatever, an Academy Award?
I think that the best thing about this movie is that it is a story that is being told and directed by a director, shot with a camera, and then put together by an editor. It's just like, it's awesome.
That's a cop out.
That is the worst answer. Are you gonna give us a real answer now?
I think that what I said about these characters and life, I think those were my final thoughts on the movie.
Okay.
I
That's what hit you.
thoroughly enjoyed.
Do you
This
give it a
movie.
score?
This I'm gonna follow your advice and then measure movie by movies and not compare it to other movies. So this is a 10 to me. This is a movie that in all intents and purposes hits everything that I wanted it to hit, and I have nothing negative to say about it.
Yeah.
All
10
right.
out of 10 arepas.
What's that?
10 arepas.
10 arepas. What about you, Nick?
I'd give it a 10.
That's
I think
10.
it's I'd give it a 10.
Any other final thoughts?
I think it's one of the best westerns I've ever seen in my life. Probably, it's one of the best westerns made, and one of the
We never
best
even talked
thrillers.
about that.
Yeah, I know that's true. That it's a western.
Yeah, I know. We just don't have enough time, and Skype's being mean to us today.
Yes.
It's an awesome western movie, and it's one of the best films I've seen. Acting, writing, everything, and it's such a good adaptation where the artists who made it could really take themselves out of the equation and really be like, what do we like from the source material, and how do we translate it onto film? And I can't think of another case that someone did it that accurately.
What about you, Mike? Final thoughts?
I'm going to give it, because I'm talking about it with people who love it, I'm going to give it a 10. Because some days I do give it a 10.
Okay.
Catch
Today is
me
one of those
a week
days.
from now, I might feel differently about it. I don't know. It's a difficult movie for me to assess.
You want to give it a
Which is great.
range? You could give it a range.
No, I'm going to give it a 10 because I think
What's
it's
your
a
low
great
end?
movie
I'm
on its
just
own
kind of
terms.
curious about your low end.
Huh?
I'm just curious what your low end score for the movie. Like, what's a bad day?
3.
God,
It's like
7.
a 7. Okay, 7
Yeah.
to 10, something like that.
Even my quibbles are mere quibbles.
I love
Yeah,
it.
cool.
I love it how when he was about to give the number, Nick was about to sip the coffee. He just waited. He just stopping his track. Like,
No,
what you gonna say? What you gonna say? And then he's like, okay, 7. I can live with that. And then he drank his
On
coffee.
my bad days, I rate it against other Coen Brothers movies.
Yeah.
And there's other Coen Brothers movies I think are masterpieces, and I don't consider this one.
All right.
Mhm.
Like
I
the
think
Lady
it's them
Killers.
stepping way outside their box, and I have to judge it on different terms.
Mm.
It's like Stanley Kubrick making a cartoon.
Yeah,
I would be so down to watch a Stanley,
Stanley
Kubrick
Kubrick
cartoon.
It would look like
It'd be great.
It would look like Soviet propaganda.
You know, I wish more.
Too on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is Doctor Strangelove.
I know my K. I know K.
Yeah.
And I go way back.
You're Kubrick.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah. I love this movie. I think from just like looking at it as a filmmaker and like as something that is sort of cohesive and just like as well done as a movie can be, it's a 10 for me, or 100. Give it 100 out of 100.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, just all points. Deakins is so good. He's one of the best cinematographers around, and like, there's some of his best scenery shots in this movie. If that's flashy, then I guess I like flashy, because the shots are just gorgeous throughout this movie.
They are. They put you right
From the
in
close-ups to the
time.
wides, like everything is gorgeous. And yeah, the performances are great, and it's deep enough to talk about very easily. Like I think when you watch it, you can see that there are layers going on here, and beyond that, I feel like it just sucks you in.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's just like I love it as a filmmaker and as just a fan, because I saw this before I went to film school, and like it sucked me right in.
I think that's my problem with it, is like I think it's an impeccably made movie. It's as
Yeah.
good as it can be made with that material. I think personally it's not really my kind of narrative.
And that's fair.
I don't think there's enough characters
Yeah.
in it for me. I don't find the characters that we have particularly interesting in it.
I mean, yeah,
think
I
Javier
kind of
Bardem
like.
is the most important, interesting character in it.
I mean,
Those are my problems with it.
you're always seeing the characters being like a single-minded character. Like they have one objective and then that's what they follow. You don't explore. You have your moments,
know.
but they are very.
In fear of getting back into it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I do feel like Josh Brolin is a more complicated character than the overall plot. Like, he does things he doesn't have to do. He does go back in an attempt to give the guy water and save his life. And like,
Number one.
what's that?
Aaron.
Mistake
But
number
like,
one.
maybe not. They might have just ambushed his apartment and killed him.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think he made a
wouldn't
lot
have
of dumb
Good
mistakes that I got angry about. That's what I kept going through. Was like, come on,
Yeah.
don't do that.
Leave him. You had your chance to
Guy-
help him out. He asked for
Come
agua.
on.
Guy's dead. Guys, I mean, by this point, come on, guy's dead.
He didn't have no agua.
Somebody's gonna come and try to figure out what happened to their guys, and then it's just straight up dumb.
Yeah.
It brought out the worst in my.
Not moving the money
personality.
was
Just
the
wanted to
dumbest
get
thing
away
he
with
ever
the
did.
money,
Not taking the money out of the briefcase and just putting it into like a bunch of backpacks or something.
Mhm.
Like or into the tires. Like he should have taken the money out of that bag and found. Maybe he
We're
wouldn't have found
diving-
it.
we're
Maybe he
diving
wouldn't have
into
found
it. We're
But
diving into
anyway,
We're never gonna stop.
we're never
We're
gonna
never
stop.
gonna stop. It's
I
not
can
gonna
go all
stop.
day with
Next
this movie.
week we'll talk
Don't
about
do
No
it.
Country.
Don't do
No
it.
Country Part 2. We could.
Hashing out No Country for Old Men.
They
Part
should make a
5.
sequel of this movie.
No, they shouldn't.
The alternate choices.
Alternate choices. I mean,
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah. How Chigger found his quarter.
yeah. I mean, I think they are well suited to the material. The Coen Brothers.
I think they're terrible filmmakers.
It's good stuff. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank
just
you.
gonna wrap it up there. We all liked it
This
to
was
some
super
extent or
fun.
other. We'll post soon what the next movie is going to be. Thank you for joining us, Nick and Mike. Mike, do you want me to put up your blog again? Do you? I forgot what it was.
Say it. Say it, say it.
WordPress. Yeah, Michael Hawthorne Smith. Dot or at word dot WordPress.
WordPress.com, yeah.
WordPress.com. So you can find it there. I'll put it on screen. Nick, can they find you anywhere?
No.
No.
I'm looking for the money.
All right.
Nick
for joining us.
Nick is turning every day more into Ron Swanson.
What about right? It's true. What about you?
I'm Jose in Paradox. That's in Instagram, and I'm sorry, in Twitter, and in Instagram is JAVCH2.
So many letters.
Yes, I know.
Thank
It's
you for joining
it's
us.
An acronym of me. Thank you guys.
This is fun. You can find me at John in Paradox. That's JON in Paradox on Instagram and Twitter. Follow the show on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Movie Club Collective. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video. It helps us out. Subscribe to the channel. If you're on iTunes, give us a rating. Maybe leave a review. Let us know what you think. And go to the Facebook page for updates to see what our next movie is going to be. And to comment. And to like if you wanna leave a suggestion for something else to watch, that's a good place to do it. Until next week, signing off.
Yes. Bye-bye.
This has been a J Squared production.